So, finding a case that actually fits eATX motherboards seems to be a little bit of a challenge. But finding a case that fits eATX motherboards and is under $100 seems even harder. So today I have a case that'll fit eATX motherboards under $100 and it has a lot of room for water cooling. So let's get started. So this is the Deepcool Matrexx 55. It's a full tower case, so it's about 19 inches tall, 18 inches deep, and about 8.5 inches wide. Like I said, it fits eATX boards. We have a front glass panel, and we also have a glass side panel. Glass front panels seem to be kind of a fad these days, but this case, you actually get a lot of room in the front here. And you have this little cutout at the bottom, so you have lots of airflow. So airflow shouldn't be an issue with your fans as long as you put them on the inside, not up against the glass. So as far as fan mounting options or radiator mounting options, we can actually fit 3 120s in the front or a 360mm rad. You can fit 2 120s on top or 2 140s on top, and then a 120 in the back. So this case actually comes in a couple of different options, I think. So we have like a non-RGB version, which is what this is, and an RGB version. The difference is the RGB version comes with a controller, it has a light here, and that's pretty much it. So like I said, this is a eATX supported case, so we're going to do a eATX build in here. So we're going to put a X79 system in here. We're going to do a build for you and just tell you how the experience was building inside this case. This is actually quite a decent case, and it looks pretty good, especially with the RGB lighting in the front. But I have a couple issues or things that you should be aware of first. So my first and probably the biggest issue is the power supply area. So if you buy this case, you should really double check your power supply and make sure it can fit, because where Deepcool placed the cutout for the power supply cables, it's really short, so it doesn't really fit any sort of extended size power supply. The one I used is not actually that big, and it just barely fits. I actually had to pull the cables through first, place the power supply in there, and use the screws to actually pull the power supply into place. It was super tight, and thankfully none of the cables are pinching or cut or anything like that, but it's definitely something you should be aware of. The way the screws are for the mounting of SSDs on the back side of the case, they don't fit if you use eATX boards. So if you actually remove the hard drive tray, which by the way is actually riveted in place, so you'd have to drill it out or cut the rivets, and there's no real good way to put it back, you have nowhere to put your hard drives. So they're just going to be hanging off the side or something. So with that in mind, I measured the distance from the front of the case not the glass panel, but the actual front inside where you can mount fans, to the actual hard drive tray. It's almost exactly 45 millimeters, which means if you use 25 millimeter fans, I would say you have 18 to 19 millimeters maybe to play with for your thickness of radiator, which means you're probably going to be using really thin radiator, which is not going to be that great. Even worse is if you put the fans in the front, you're going to have almost no airflow, just like pretty much any other glass front panel case, so that's not great either. So there's no really good way to put a 360 mil rad in this case, even though it says it supports 360 mil rads. So that's something to be aware of as well. You can't always put a 280 on top or on a 240 in the front. A 240 won't interfere with the hard drive tray, but if you have 3 fans in the front, I don't know about you guys, but me, I always want to put a 360 in the front because there's 3 fans there anyway, why not? The way I see this case is it's a budget case. It looks great, it functions fine, it holds all your components, but the only way it really stands out is it supports eATX. So that's probably the only reason you're going to buy this case versus a case that's $10 cheaper. But because it supports eATX, at least to me, I have a certain frame of mind. I'm not going to check the power supply size requirements too closely, probably not the CPU cooler height too closely, because it supports eATX. So, you know, everything will be fine, right? Well, you really have to check all that stuff on this case, because it seems to me that Deepcool just took a smaller case and tried to figure out how to cram an eATX board inside. So I wouldn't call this an eATX case, other than it has the screw holes for an eATX case. So with all that being said, maybe it sounds too negative, I don't know. This is still a really awesome case. It's under $100 most of the time, depending on which version you get. It's a good case, it holds your stuff, it looks good. I would recommend it to people. Just be warned that you gotta check your power supply size and your CPU cooler height size, because it may not fit in this thing. And I probably wouldn't use a 360 millimeter radiator on this as well, because it's going to be really hard to fit it in here. That was the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was the Matrexx 55. And if you are thinking about getting this case, I have a link down in the video description. If you want to just use that link, please do. So until next time, bye.